Back in 2020, I began my Nuffield journey, and at the time, I was a senior scientist for horticulture at HDB. And I worked across the horticultural sector, and we knew there were changes that the sector needed to make. It needed to transition into more sustainable farming practices, but it also had the pressures of the current economic climate. It had pressures of the labour challenges, the increase in fertiliser costs, etc. So, it was very difficult for growers to see a way to start making that transition, but also to look at what's available in the wider context of the sector. As a scientist at the time, I could also see some of the new developments in technology that were coming along, and I really wanted to explore what these technologies meant for the sector and where we could start to exploit them and partner and really develop new supply chains. So my start of my story really begins in Australia. It begins on the 10th of March. It's a week that many globally will remember for a particular virus hitting everybody. And I really want to talk about a guy I met called Larry Turner in South Australia. And I want to talk about him because I found him such an inspiration because he embodied a lot of the thinking that was going on in my Nuffield at the time. So Larry is a eucalyptus grower, and he produces eucalyptus essential oil. But why is he so inspirational? Well, firstly, back in 1992, Larry was a sheep farmer. And he was looking at his business, and he knew he wanted to change it. It wasn't the right type of business he wanted to take forward, so he applied for a Winston Churchill Fellowship and was awarded this scholarship that obviously is very, very similar to our Nuffield Scholarship today. He travelled the world, he met lots of people, and he talked about lots of different types of business models. And one of the key things Larry wanted to introduce to his farm or to his future business was sustainability. He really wanted to start from as little input as possible and make a fully sustainable system. So Larry travelled the world and really identified a market in eucalyptus essential oils. So he then he started on his journey with his business. He collaborated with the University of Adelaide. Together, they looked at the genetics of eucalyptus trees in South Australia, and they identified the right trees to give him the best yield, the right essential oil profiles, and he incorporated them onto his farm. Then he built an innovative extraction system that gave him the best yields possible. But Larry didn't stop there, and this is what makes it really exciting. So then he took me around the corner and he showed me his research laboratory. And as a scientist, I thought, this is amazing. And we went into his lab and, he worked with scientists, he worked with experts to then bring in analytical equipment and take his business to the next step. So Larry knew he had waste side streams, so products that were produced that at the time didn't have a function. So he used his equipment, he used his collaborations to develop new products and explore new markets with these waste side streams. So this is called waste valorization. It's adding value to waste. But Larry still didn't stop there. He recognised he had all this other waste product in his wood from his eucalyptus trees after the distillation process. And he looked at his business in the context of his community that he lived in. And he lived on Kangaroo Island. At the time, they were shipping oil onto the island for fuel. And he worked with his local community and local council to obtain grants to then implement a new district heating system. So using his waste wood, he turned them into wood pellets for this new district heating system. And I thought it was such a nice example that really embodied how I think we need to look at our sector. So for me, the question was, what is the opportunity for horticulture and the wider agricultural sector? And basically, it's replacing fossil fuel-based raw materials with plant-based raw materials, but materials that are produced as sustainably as possible. And that's the key. You start as sustainably as possible. What does that mean? Sustainable crop production. It means looking at everything we do and how we do it, and it means adopting innovation. So it's looking at energy efficiency and management, how we bring renewables into our businesses. It's taking a look at our business and how we decarbonise right across the business. It's looking at our inputs, water resource use, fertiliser use. But then it's integrating the biology as well, getting the best crops possible for the crops we want to grow, to produce. And with that, integrating crop management practices, all for positive impact on biodiversity, right from crop level through to landscape level. And then asking ourselves, are these the right crops we actually want to grow for the system that we operate in? So that's the first part of the sector transformation. What's the second part? The second part is looking at new bio-based products. So we have all these waste side streams that come out of our businesses, and how can we add value to them? How can we valorise them and change them into plant-based products and plant-based materials? So in the picture on the left, you can see waste citrus peel. So what is happening in that picture is the essential oils and flavourings are being extracted from that waste citrus peel. So this is a waste side stream from someone else's business, and they're using that to develop new products. In the picture on the right, you can see plant-based fibre material. So again, this is taken from agri-waste. It's turned into a new fibre that can be then used in other purposes. It can be spun, it can be used in textiles. So what does this mean? This means we can start looking at new supply chains and new markets. And three key areas that I want to talk about today are the food and packaging sector, the construction sector, and the textile sector. So it's quite a way away from where I started, but this is where I think the opportunity really starts to open up for the agri and hort sectors. So plant-based food. So the pictures on the left are Nim's crisp. So Namisha has a collaboration with a fruit producer, and she takes their waste products. So this is product that is perfectly fit for consumption, but it doesn't meet the standards for retail. She takes their fruit product and she makes her crisp from it. But she was getting a waste core from the apples in this case. And she wanted to turn her business into a zero waste business. So she's now developed, through innovation, a process which uses these waste apple cores and has created a new product with that. So she is a zero waste business. So she's powders, herbal teas, etc. That's what her product has gone into. It's also important to look at what technology is out there as well and how we can use that technology to develop new products. So, for instance, this is a 3D printer. It prints food pulp, which is then edible. You can print it in lots of different shapes and sizes. But it goes to show that, it doesn't have to be a solid piece of fruit, for example. It can be a pulp that is then constructed in different ways, different levels into new food products. Packaging. Packaging impacts every single sector we work in. We all receive parcels, we all buy food in packaging, and the opportunities to get our sustainable raw materials into the packaging sector. Now, I know there's lots of policy that goes on around packaging. Should it be recyclable? Should it be reusable? Should it be compostable? Lots of different issues going on, but it is definitely an opportunity that we should be engaging with. The textile sector. This is a really, really interesting sector. So the picture on the left is a leather alternative. This is mycelium, or fungi, grown on agri-waste, and it is creating this new type of product that is going into textiles. On the right, we have man-made cellulosic fibres. So all plant cells have a large component of cellulose. It's what the building blocks of plants are made out of. And we can take cellulose, we can dissolve it, and then we can extrude it into new types of fibres. So these are some examples that I actually gathered together, and they're made from very different types of plant materials. So we're talking pineapple, we're talking rose stems, we're talking bamboo, lotus, banana, nettles, mints. So you can do it with any plant-based material, you know. But I have to say, the textiles industry is very environmentally damaging as it currently stands. And this process is environmentally damaging. So we have to work towards better processes with this sector. I should also say it is horticulture ready. You know, the skills and talent we have in the horticultural sector transfer directly into this highly technical area of waste valorisation. And finally, we have the construction sector. So there's many materials that are being developed now. There's a big push because the construction sector accounts for 1/3 of all global carbon emissions. They are under severe pressure to really decarbonise their sector. And you can see here a selection of insulation panels, materials that are going to be used in kitchens. So, you know, our raw materials can feed into these new products. And this is just a selection of experimental buildings that I saw in the Netherlands. Fantastic, looking at how they incorporate bio-based materials into their new building ideas and designs. So what's happening in the UK? So when we look closer to home, there's some amazing examples of what people are starting to do. And with the right support, we can do more of this. So this is Phil Pearson at APS Produce, who's collaborated with Steve Price at Biotech Services. And together, Steve has taken the waste tomato leaves. He's transformed them into a pulp packaging. And then the tomatoes are then sold in the pulp packaging made from the tomato leaves produced in the system. Fantastic example. I'm going to tell you about another example. But first, I'm going to tell you about what I do now. So I've taken all my Nuffield experience and knowledge and brought it into the programme I operate. Richard mentioned it earlier, called Growing Kent and Medway. It's a regional investment programme. It's funded by UK government. It's value of about approximately £35 million over 5 years. And we're really trying to support sustainable innovation in horticultural and plant-based food and drink businesses. And we have a number of grants that we give out on a competitive basis. And John here is one of our recent grant winners. And he runs a distillery in Canterbury, but he produces waste grain, waste CO2, waste water, waste energy from his distillation process. And he's using our grant to try and take all that waste and valorise it and grow specialty mushrooms. So it's a really nice example of someone outside the horticultural sector moving into the horticultural sector. So, and this is the type of work we're trying to support. I can see my time's up. I've already got, this is my last slide. So what next? So what next? I'm looking at Growing Kent and Medway and taking it on to the next step, the phase 2. So, and turning it into a growing green economy centre. So this will be a platform to bring businesses together, to bring researchers together, because Growing Kent and Medway, you know, it's a consortium of universities, it's a consortium of businesses, it's a consortium of people that support our businesses, enable them to develop. But having a focus on growing a green economy is what we want to do next. It's about sustainable production, it's about new bio-based products, new supply chains, and creating that regional circularity for the UK. So thank you for listening. I want to say a great thank you to my sponsors, the Worshipful Company of Fruiterers and the Food Chain Scholarship. I also want to thank my employers, past and present, so NIAB and AHDB. I want to thank my 2020 Scholar Group and especially my family and my husband, Richard, for the support they've given me. Thank you.